1, 2, 3, test. Working? Okay, that's for the live stream. Can we start? Welcome everybody to the digital studio. Last speaker was about design. That was Laurens van Akker from Renault. Then it was crowded, but today is even more crowded. So I'm pleasantly surprised by the many of you that show up. Thank you for that. Today we have two people on artificial intelligence. And I was told last week at the VIN Symposium that artificial intelligence is the first intelligence without consciousness. So really curious about it, to learn more about that. Welcome Johan Toll and Raymond Meijer, that was the name, who will guide us through artificial intelligence today. So looking forward to it. Gentlemen, floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I need to stay close, very close to Johan because of the microphone. But my length fits very well with the length of Johan, so that's good. Thank you all for being here. We will start with a very short video, which is setting the scene a bit about what our artificial intelligence in EMEA is all about. It's only 2.5 minutes. But I really would like to ask you to participate in the discussions. Johan will come up with a couple of statements, and we would like to have a very active discussion if possible. So feel free to interrupt, Johan.
Yes, very much so. I don't want to have any questions at the end. I want to have them straight away. So.
Perfect. Then we will start off with a video first. Let me start it.
We are indeed approaching a seminal moment. A tectonic shift is imminent. The basic platform for how services are delivered is shifting. Not replacing labor with cheaper labor, but replacing labor with cognitive systems.
This phase that we're going through goes by all kinds of different names. I prefer this idea of the second machine age. The label cognitive computing is a really good label for it too. Call it what you will, it is a real phenomenon, and over again. I'm amazed at how quickly events are overtaking our expectations, our frameworks, our old ways of looking at the world.
That first true cognitive engine can service claims processing, can be the financial advisor of one of the largest investment houses here today.
I'd characterize it as the ability to sense what's happening, whether it be emotion, data, fact, whatever it might be, to understand and learn, and then to act on it.
I know it seems simple, but that is the key. To be able to answer a question as a human would understand it through learning in natural language.
It's always been about optimizing solutions around technology and then figuring out how to train the humans. And I think what we're seeing with cognitive technologies is flipping the lens on that.
As you speak with Amelia, she trends where your emotions are, where they're going. And then she can use this information for decision making.
We don't need to optimize the system around the technology anymore. We need to optimize the solution around the human. And that's what the cognitive technology is really allowing us to do. And that's the real power of Amelia.
The one thing I can say with really strong confidence is we ain't seen nothing yet. As Amelia improves, as her siblings and her family tree expands, the advances that are going to come are going to make what we've seen so far look like the warm-up act.
So far this was the most salesy pitch that we're going to do, and now it's all about discussion. So
yes.
Johan, take the floor, please. Hey.
Good then. So good afternoon, everyone. And I have to excuse myself already. I'm a bit cold, so I sound like a blues singer today, even though it's not my natural voice, but I try to do my best. So I'm Johan Toll. I'm from IPsoft. I'm the CTO for European business. And before that, I was a client of IPsoft, where I started automation and cognitive 10 years ago. as one of the first clients doing robotics. And we had an automation rate of 97% automation in the company, which meant that 3% of the work was done by humans, the rest by automation. And that was in 10 years ago. So things have evolved a lot since that. So, like this maybe? Yes. So we're an American company, so we need to have disclaimer slides. And can you please all read it? So, when you talk about artificial intelligence, cognitive, machine learning, all those different kind of aspects of what it is, there's one thing we usually forgot, and I forget, there's the concept of humans. Chatbots are not humans. And it's a question I propose to you. What is the byproduct of interaction? Yeah, that's one thing the human has. But the byproduct of interaction is knowledge. So every time we meet someone, we have a potential to learn something. And I might have one idea, you one, and we get back, we have actually 4 ideas. So actually, having a colleague which is smarter than yourself lets you grow. So how can you have both digital and human labor grow together? Not to have them as separate machines, but work together with us so we can elevate ourselves instead of be replaced by technology. And knowledge is also the art of taking something which has no tangible benefit into value. And the cool thing with knowledge and language is that it has no barriers in terms of geography. It has no dependency on any business, because I don't know any kind of business which doesn't use language, because we are humans. And I think here as well, I'm not sure how many nationalities we are, but we don't need to have a Dutch session or a French session or English session or Swedish session. I'm from Sweden. Because we have that common language. So the language is the starting point when we talk about AI. And to me, I don't like to use the word AI, actually. We who work in a business, we actually talk about AAI, artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence is so hyped, so you don't know what it means. So therefore, it's artificial. Therefore, we would like to talk about digital labor, digital workforce. I'm going to explain why. And also, knowledge, of course, the foundation for intelligent action. So when you think about those kind of statements, and then think about cognitive solutions, that has to apply to them as well. And for example, a bank in Sweden who has an artificial agent. You can talk to the bank about anything you could imagine. It can answer almost anything, but it will never do anything for you. It will never open a bank account for you or get your account. It will tell you how you should do it. You still need to call them. It's like having a web page for KLM which tells you how to book a ticket, but you can't book it. It doesn't help anyone. So, and this is also pretty true. Intellectual property, does any company actually has that? When you think of it? And sometimes people leave our organization and they create a big space, and some people leave and there's nothing really that happens. So how can we do that? How can we get rid of that issue? How can we make sure that we always use the best of our own abilities? If you're talking in the call center business, usually research says that you can only have 8 to 9 products in your head at the same time, because you can't do more. So if you have, say, 50 or 60 products, you will not sell the other ones because you don't know. But if you use artificial intelligence or cognitive solutions, all knowledge has equal value. I learned a lot of things when I was in my first or second grade, and I forgot a lot of it as well. But it's still somewhere there, but I can't use it today. The just-in-case learning versus just-in-time. So, and some facts about it to make it really, really troublesome. Well, knowledge is personal and dynamic. Because we will never, ever know any day what knowledge we will require and when it's needed. Unpredictable is the essence of it. It's about people and relationship. It's a very social dimension. And it's about context, intent, and content. And what do I mean by that? We always heard, if you're working in the media business, that content is king. You need to have the right content, right FAQs, right pictures, right movies. I usually use my mother when I do this kind of thing. So if, let's assume here, we're all IT professionals. Let's assume that one. And a few of us get tasked to create some user guides, an FAQ about printers and copying machines. Poor guys. You know, that is where all logic ends. But we are supposed to do that. And what happens is that we will automatically use our professional language on writing that, because we're professionals. And then we give that to my mother, and she does a search. And can't find it, because she's not an IT professional, I will tell you. Which means that the value of what we created has zero value, because it can't be found. So information and knowledge which can't be consumed while you're looking for it has no value. So the intent is so much more important than the content is. And if you don't know how a client expresses themselves, how should you ever be able to advise them? A few examples. When we're using EMEA or cognitive digital labor for insurance, you might think a client will call and say, I would like to change my insurance for my car. I would like to change my insurance. But what client calls us about and says, I'm sorry, I actually got into divorce and the car is for my wife. Can you please fix? It doesn't even mention the word of insurance, but all of you understand that it was an insurance question. So how can we really grasp the full intent and what I'm really trying to do in the vocabulary of the audience? That's tough. In context, of course, most of our solutions out there talk about is contextless, like Siri. If I talk to Siri, I would like to have a restaurant, I don't like fish. Of course I get a fish restaurant, because I told her fish. And I will never get a follow-through question. And sometimes, if I say, I want to book a plane ticket to Boston, of course I need to put more questions when you want to travel, in which class, how many kids, at which date, and which return ticket, single ticket. That is very hard to do with chatbots. And the most interesting thing is, we don't actually know what we know until someone asks us. Think of that one. And if you talk about computers and digital labor, it's even harder. How can you dump someone's memory? I can't dump yours. So you don't actually know to what extent you know something until you've been asked. And this is things which you need to actually work on when we talk about cognitive solutions. We just get into the issue that the solutions we have today hasn't been created by someone. We have created them ourselves. So the legacy we have, who's to blame? Of course, you who's sitting here. So we have created our own solution, our own problems, which also need to be handled. But the ugly truth of that is that using AI or digital labor requires us to change our own perception on things. And I can tell any one of you to change, that's easy. But if you want to change yourself, that's a lot harder. So I can give you one example. If I say BMW, your brain have already been thinking, what do you think about people driving BMW? Are they expensive? Are they arrogant drivers? Are they hopeful in traffic? But I was thinking about BMW motorcycles. None of you were. So that shows how tinted our brain is just by giving a single word. So therefore, as we base everything on linguistic capabilities, there are actually no barriers. The only barriers we put where we can use the technology is those we put on ourselves. And it's so easy to try something new and say, not really like I want it to be. Then we go back and do it the old way. It's a natural behavior. So, what have we gotten? 5,000 years as humans. Yeah, we can actually communicate with each other using human language. Pretty cool when you think of it. And we can understand. Understanding and comprehension is not the same thing as voice-to-text recognition. Many people think that voice-to-text is AI. It's just machine learning and advanced computing. It's no comprehension. Steve Jobs created jobs for New York job security for the New York job market. That's 5 definitions of the word jobs. 1 is a noun, 3 are combined nouns, One is the last name, and in combination with the first name, actually the person. So how can you make a rule to query on jobs? So comprehension is to be able to actually understand what things really are. And we can actually learn from interaction. So how can we make sure that the solution we're using in this space gets better and better for every day by actually listening and observing what people are doing without jeopardizing your brand and the loyalty towards your client base? Because you need to be sure that if someone asks something about KLM, that you will probably know what they're going to respond be. So you don't get a solution which someone can talk to, and after a while you have created a KLM digital employee which doesn't know what's going to answer, because you won't have predictable services. Transform learning into knowledge. One of the things I talk the most about actually in this area is the difference between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. They're not the same. So 57091 is 5 digits, but also zip code. Then it's information. If I know a couple of zip codes, it's actually knowledge. So that gets us into the aspect of knowledge and abilities. So if you give someone an HR policy and they read it, does that mean that they become HR representatives? No. They get that when they have read it and understood what it means. So how can we get a computer to read something and have the ability to actually do something? So if you talk to digital labor and want it to book a ticket for you, it should book the ticket for you while you're on there, not tell you how it should be done. So I think knowledge will be a commoditized which costs nothing. But abilities is what we're going to differentiate you from your competitors. So when you talk to a digital labor solution, it should actually do something. Not give you a response to a question, but carry out business processes, whatever that might be. We have an Amelia actually in Japan who provides cosmetic advice for men and women. Talk to them and say, okay, which clothes works together? How should you make your makeup? By using processes. I'm not sure if that's a business process, but some kind of process, I guess. And we also need to do reasoning and decision making. Logic, sentiment, emotions, moods, personalities. Figure out if someone is happy, unhappy. There is actually, you can actually use the same concept that psychiatrists use, pleasure, arousal, and dominance, and vector out to see one of the 173 states of mind a psychiatrist will use for you to figure out if you're unhappy. Okay, maybe we should not try to upsell something. If you're happy and you're a frequent flyer, maybe we should offer you something extra. Logical and sentiment-based solutions. And of course, being able to understand and recognize speech. That is what we actually have developed during these 5,000 years. Pretty basic, but hell, it's advanced. If you just look at the sentence you have written and figure out all the processing you do. Co-referencing in languages. For example, if someone say, I have a house, how old is it? Everyone knows it refers to the house, but that's not easy with a computer. How do you detect if something is affirmative? Yes, sure, go ahead, fine. Different statements which means the same thing. Very hard to do. Labor quandary. This study was done by Cisco System when they acquired Tandberg Video Systems in 2010. This means that if we should have the same level of living today, in 2050, and not lose anything, we need to be 2.5 times as productive in the coming 33 years. But if we should have the same growth in 2050 as we had the last 50 years, we need to pull off 40 hours per day. And of course, that's the only thing I can actually tell you today, that if we meet in 2050, we will not have more than 24 hours a day. Maybe the French will introduce a couple of more seconds to have the time perfect. But that's the only thing I can actually agree to. So how are we going to do that? You know, the French is actually active discussion where you should go down to a 15-hour work week. 15-hour work week. Because they think that the digital solution is going to set the human free so we can be even more human. But that's not the French. So this is a pretty complex thing. Any one of you, Henry Louis Mencken? He's the godfather of management consulting. And he said that all complex problems have a solution which is simple and wrong. And you know, I really like that statement because it's so easy to have this smart, quick solution to things, but this is pretty complex because it involves humans, clients, machines, feelings, sentiment, loyalty, branding. It's not an easy task. It's not having a single chatbot sitting in a room answering questions. And of course, aren't we going to get rid of a lot of people by doing this? Of course, aren't we? This is statistics from the United States Bureau of Unemployment, which shows you that we are already, of course, making our companies more productive and more efficient. That's nothing new. The only thing is new here is that it actually involves the whole society and at more rapid pace. So I'm a strong believer that with technology like this, we can actually elevate humans, repurpose them. I met a big call center in Germany half a year ago. They had 14,000 employees in their call center. And the CEO said, okay, let's stop doing presentations. I will tell you my big issue. Roughly 25 to 30% of my people in my call center are bored to death. And he said, what do you think that employment satisfaction or unemployment satisfaction impact customer satisfaction? What do you think? Of course, there you have a direct link between employment unsatisfaction and customer satisfaction. So he said, okay, do you think we can replace those 20%, find leading individuals, and also repurpose them for new services which our competitors doesn't have? And while doing that, we move a lot of our traffic from our voice channel so we can actually provide a better support on voice with those who actually needs it. We have more time over. So everyone wins. Can we do that? So everything is not just a question of costs. It's very much a question of customer experience, CSAT, Net Promoter Scores. And of course, a shrink in OPEX, of course, a result of it, but it's not the driver.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Because you said that we need to have like five times more hours in a day if we want to keep up with this growth.
Yes.
Is this how we're going to use it?
No.
Is it going to put away the humans in
No, I don't think so. It's just a way to show you that we can't solve. If you are on that path, I'm not saying that we are on that path, but if we were on that path, the solution is not to toss more humans at it because we don't have enough hours, enough humans to do it. So we need to think in a smarter way by combining the benefits of humans, you know, our creativity and our ability to do deviations, which creates new solutions, with machines which are predictable and goes from economies of scale to economies of speed, trying to combine them. I spoke at a seminar in London just before Christmas who talked about what will the new employee look like in the future? What kind of aspect will we look at when you employ people? And they all said, psychology. To be able to understand humans is our big distinguishing fact compared to machines. Because machines doesn't have empathy at all. They try to mimic some kind of empathy, but they don't have empathy. And we know empathy forms trust, and trust allows for mistakes. So I think we have a big area which we can excel in and really have a lot more fun work. That's what I see. So, and thank you for interrupting me, by the way. And So let's get into digital labor. Disruptive by nature. And what I mean by that is, as I said before, that language is probably the most smartest invention of humankind. I think it is, because everything we do is based on that one. So if we're using machines to communicate with humans, they need to understand language. So when we developed our digital labor solutions, we said, okay, linguistics is everything. We need to start there. We need to be able to have something who really can digest language, dialects, and the cultural aspect of different words. And also tonalization of words, how you say it, how you use it, how you mean when you're saying them. That's the starting point. And we always get the question, where can you use digital labor? In any kind of business, we have contacts with humans. Just pick one. But of course, you need to have a high volume of interaction with your clients, your internal users, your vendors, your partners, to make it worthwhile. But as long as you have a machine-to-human interaction, that's where digital labor fits. And the way we use digital labor is we don't see digital labor as an IT system. We see it as a business application. So when we actually go to client and want to run a project, we ask them, where are you going to employ her? Who is going to be the manager? Who is going to coach it? Who is going to make the performance appraisal calls? We see her as someone who works in your team, providing service to your client with your coworkers. Not as a machine which you program, which sits by itself and answering questions. And therefore, we need to also have something who cognitively understand what you are implying. And that is probably the hardest. Intent detection with machines is very, very hard to do. When we do the insurance, so when we did a mortgage advisor is someone who resells loans, and we were able to get the level of accuracy up to 96%, or maybe it was 95%. So 95% of the work being done by mortgage advisor, Amelia could do. And then you of course say, okay, but what's the rest of the 5%? The closest human were roughly around 70%. Because no one could ever have that amount of knowledge and abilities in their head at the same time. Because they had 128 aspects of mortgages in the machine, and even those who worked for more than 10 years was not on level with the machine. So sometimes you get a big dissonance when you think about this one. Can actually a machine be better than a human? Of course. I live on the countryside in Sweden, and each summer my modem or DSL line gets nuked by thunderstorms. And I have to call my local IT company, which is, yes, a story by itself. And every time you have a connection or a positive customer care environment, you can almost write it down in your calendar. That day, I had someone who really helped me on the phone. And if you look on statistics made by Dimension Data in South Africa, which is I think the second or third largest call center implemented in the world, and they each year ask about 2,000 contact centers all around the world about what are the trends about customer care. And they say, for the last 10 years, forced call resolution rate goes down, down, down. We get worse and worse and worse in delivering support in all industries. So we're not getting better. And they say we don't have the right processes, we can't skill the people we're having, we had a high turnaround on people, so we can't really stabilize our operations. So they say in their statement, go digital or die. And it's even worse this year, support. I can really recommend you to buy it if you don't have it. And that shows us that we can do things in a different way. So if you, for example, the first client we ever had was in the media business, and they had, I think, 30 or No, it was around 60 people in a layer 2 service. And when you called them, you had to wait roughly 18 minutes to get your problem solved. They put in Amelia, and it was roughly 4 minutes. Waiting time went from 2 minutes to 2 seconds because we removed all IVR systems in front of it because it was not needed. Because whatever you told her, she didn't know everything. And we did that by actually putting in Amelia by listening to what people were doing. So after 4 months, you've learned 65% of all the work by just observing what people were doing. So we didn't need to program her. She was actually, as employing a new people on the team, coming from school, maybe with not that many preconceived ideas, with a lot of curiosity to learn what we were doing. So we have a digital labor solution which have a lot of curiosity to learn what you're doing. And it means that it's so much easier to get response. And you get to the right person the first time, you get the right answer, it's predictable, it has the right quality every time you do it. And we as humans, we have flaws. Research that we do the correct things 94% of any time given if we do the same process. And we all do deviations as well. Because I think all of us have taken shortcuts with our car, and maybe it was not that shortcut. But we try to deviate all the time. So when looking at that, as Max Planck said, when you're considering that you can actually use machines in a better way than humans, you start to reconsider everything you're doing. So for example, let's assume you have a process about how to book a ticket. And suddenly you're saying that process, sorry for being ignorant about your business, but and if you say, okay, we don't require any humans whatsoever, then you think, okay, is the process we're having then the right one? Or should we reconsider the way we do it completely? So many clients start with a tactical approach to say, okay, these are the 10 boxes in my process, let's implement Amelia in them. Others say, these 10 doesn't make sense now when we don't need humans anymore. So let's redo the whole process to be even more efficient. So there are many different aspects on that one. But it all goes back to our own perception of how digital labor could be used. Today it's being used in insurance, in banking, in retail, in IT service desks, in cosmetic business. Yes?
The examples you're giving are more like things that you already know, and or maybe that you cannot know all of it, that you use that. But would you consider that artificial intelligence can also be used by doing completely new things?
Yes, yes.
Because that's a completely different cup of tea than the
It is. So that's a very good question. So what I'm focused on is one aspect of artificial intelligence, which is actually having a solution which can do things we as humans already can do. So in the whole concept, there are solutions, for example, to mine data, the big data analytics like Watson, etc., to try to do things which we cannot do. Like, for example, we can meet all together and say we should read the same Jane Austen novel until tomorrow. We can all do that. But if you're going to read all of them, then we have an issue. If you're going to say that we're going to read all the public books in the Library of Amsterdam, we indeed have an issue. But Watson wouldn't. So they're all different perspectives. So what we have said is that we focus on a solution that should have the same ability as talking to human, providing work, so we can free those resources. That is our focus in our space. And then we call that the digital labor, the human-to-machine interaction. So we don't use any kind of probability calculation to guess something. For example, if I ask you, is Oslo the capital of Norway? You would either say yes or no. You wouldn't say, I think to 96.7%, I think it's Oslo. Because we don't think that way. And if you say, I'm not sure, you talk to your colleague, and at the same time, he calls, yes, it's Oslo. Then you learn and I learn. You get observation learning. That's how we work as humans. We are binary in the way we learn. We don't use probability. But of course, we have an analytical aspect of our brain to reason about aspects. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a digital labor who can read as we do as humans, who can read processes, documents, and acquire that and use that in our daily work. is completely different than big data.
But that's also the difference between AI and deep learning and machine learning, right? Because you have the human.
Yes, machine learning you can see everywhere. Like you're typing TH on your mobile phone. It says the. Okay, it's machine learning. Or vector-based solution. You can see that everywhere. But we're focusing on giving machines abilities to do real work, because I think that's what we need. And then mining the data. So for example, many of our clients use Watson to get the data, and Amelia as the front end to have a communication with the data. And while we're doing that, we can actually do actions through learning. And what I mean by that is that digital labor in us is really when you put the AI solution into your team. So if an example, let's assume that you train a digital labor to answer a question about how to get in and out of Schiphol, as an example. And that's the only thing she knows. So when the first client calls in and says, okay, I wonder, I'm going to land in Boston in next week, so how do I get from Boston to Copley? And Amelia says, I'm sorry, I don't really understand you. Yeah, but you know, I need to go to a couple of places after I landed in Boston. Okay, I'm sorry, okay, but I will help you. I will connect you to a human. So Amelia takes the same call and send it to a human. And then the human is connected with the customer care. The customer care representative is connected to the human. And then Amelia starts listening to conversation. So, yeah, yes, okay, I get it. And then when they're done and the client is happy, Amelia says, okay, this is how I understood it. And then she saves that. And then tells a human, this is the way I understood that the human responded to a process or a question about the Boston airport, the Logan airport. And then the subject matter expert looks at it and says, no, this is wrong. The person gave an example of how to get from JFK to Boston. So this is rogue learning. So therefore, we only believe in supervised learning, where you as human control what the answers would be. Which means that if you use a solution like that, she will become better and better for every day. Now is a thing to think about. When I was in 6th grade, it's a long time ago, I will tell you. And I'm from Sweden. And you know, Sweden is the land of 1,000 lakes. Finland says it's that, but it's actually Sweden. So one of the tests we had at that 6th grade was to learn 26 of the major lakes and rivers in Sweden. And I nailed it completely, I will tell you. But if I get that test today, my son is in 6th grade, and I didn't do the test, I will tell you. And I've never been up north either. And you think, what does this have to do with digital labor and AI? Plenty. So if you then say that, let's assume that you and I are going to put up a digital labor solution, you're going to provide responses to Dutch tourists in Sweden who likes to fish. Then we're going to think, so which of those rivers and lakes are we going to put into Amelia or in the solution? All of them? No, I think that maybe they don't go that far up. So maybe we put one of the big lakes, you know, like a Vänern and Vättern, which are two big ones. We put them in. And then we put in some other lakes and some big rivers for trout fishing in the south part, very close to the ferry terminal. That's probably it. And we call that just in case learning. We put them in because we might think that someone's going to ask about it. And then the first caller comes in and says, oh, I like to go up north to Lapland and fish for pike. And I mean, I don't have a clue about that. And then connect it to the tourist bureau and say, yes, you can go up north, you go to Kiruna, it takes forever, the sun is shining all the day around. It's really, really lovely, you should go there. A lot of mosquito big as cows in the air. And that was one instance. And then a week later on, another one calls about the same thing. And a third time, and fourth time. And afterwards, okay, now we have a couple of people who's really asking for fishing up north. So maybe we should add that. And that is just-in-time learning. So you're actually adding the abilities of digital labor to what client is asking for, not what you think presumptively is what they need. So what our client started to do first was to say, okay, this is dangerous. We're going to do this internally first. which meant internal vocabulary, internal audience, trained people. And then the other one said, okay, let's put it external, tell the client that we're developing it, and let the client define what we should offer. So anything being asked for, are we 100% sure that that was what the client was asking for? So the clients are actually developing our service, just-in-time learning. So if you combine just-in-case with just-in-time learning, you will find the best fit, which means you don't need to put in all those 26 rivers and lakes into Amelia if no one is ever asking for it, just a waste of time. So that's why we can combine teaching her, not programming, teaching her what you should know from a basic, there's the foundation, and then let client define the rest. And when you use clients, it's also going to be used in the words your clients are using, not the word you think they might use.
Can I ask a question about it?
Yeah.
How many time does such a process take? So in your example.
To train.
To train, yeah. Are you talking about weeks, hours, days, months?
Yes.
Process?
No, so I can give you an example. For one of the banks, we signed a contract the 10th of December 2015. 18 days later, Amelia was up and running and say, hello world. Like she was able to learn. 45 days later, she was trained on all the business cases integrated with mainframes and Unix boxes, etc., with trouble ticketing from Remedy, blah, 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 etc. So 45 days. And then the CEO said, okay, now I want to have a private banker. You get 9 weeks. And 9 weeks later on, they had a private banker. So the reason why it gets so fast is that it's training, it's not programming. So for example, we train her how to run the business processes. We train her on how to answer questions. So if you have a good view on what you're actually doing, then it gets pretty quick. But if you don't know what you're doing, then of course we have an issue. And then we need to put you in listening mode and do a lot of QA before we can get her live. So I would say that from a sign-up contract to have something in production, which you can be proud of, to not jeopardize your brand, maybe 6 months, I would say.
And that's a combination of speaking and uploading? Or?
Yes, it is. And also a combination of, when we started this journey first, of course it was an IT product. And you have to use professional servers to get it, built up. And then we thought, this is so crazy. So if you employ me, for example, to sit here close to you, you don't outsource the grooming and coaching me to Accenture. Some of you are going to get the responsibility to make sure that I actually start working and feel the culture, etc. So therefore, Amelia includes the ability for you to groom her and teach her yourselves, like any other coworker. Because you have to create your own center of excellence for your digital labor employees. And this also means he makes no mistakes. No mistakes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
She has to learn, right?
Yes. But, of course, if you teach her wrongly and tell her that Oslo is the capital of Denmark, of course she will tell you that. And of course, if I tell Amelia, my monthly salary is 10 million euros. Okay, good. Because no sense of it's a reality. But if you told her that the average salary in Sweden is 1,000 euros a month, and I told her it's 10 million, oh God, you're lucky, or something like that, So you need to give her the references, training like we do ourselves. Our beliefs, our attitude, our behavior, our action, our results, all of that drives what we do, and we need to give Amelia that as well, or digital labor. But it means that as she doesn't make any mistakes, we get to the next point, that deviation is the thing of the past. She never ever deviates, which means 100% absolute compliance.
Boring.
Yeah. But compliant doesn't mean do it the same way all the time. What I mean by that? If I say, okay, do you live in Holland? Yes. Do you wear a black jacket? Yes. Do you having a shirt on? Yes. We don't say yes, yes, yes. We say yes, yes, I have that. Fine. Yeah, it's actually a striped one. We change the way we talk all the time. And that's called paraphrasing in linguistic terms. So Amelia does paraphrasing as well, which means she will alter her own behaviors based on your sentiment. So for example, if you tell her, I hate you, or I'm so sorry, then she becomes apologetic. And then if you are like, it's pretty good weather today. Then it becomes neutral. If you start to speak in long sentences, you start to speak in long sentences as well. If you put in condensed like youth, you speak condensed. You see, so every time you get access to digital label, you get your own copy of your conversations. You don't get one, but the outcome of the process is the same. So the outcome is predictable, and the experience is tailored towards the base of the one speaking. So for example, if someone is angry, Amelia will alter how she responds based on your sense of emotions. But that is pretty tricky, because if you have the emotions and I say, I just love KLM. I flew SS here today because KLM didn't have a flight. But does that make me a non-KLM flyer? No, because that was just a sudden sentiment of emotion. If I then continue on telling you all the good things about KLM, you know, the nice-looking ladies on the planes, the good service, everything, that might tell me something about the mood I am today. And then if I continue doing it, we meet next week and the week after. He's been a nice guy. That tells me something about the person's personality. So we need to be able to cater both for those sudden expressions of anxiety, angriness, or happiness, and then figure out, can we tell something about the human by understanding that one? What could be worse than talking to someone and you're really angry, you don't understand it? So therefore we can make decisions based on sentiment and on logic. Because if 5 is more than 4, yes, but you're unhappy. So we don't care about that. We can do both. Which means, and the reason for that is important, is that the barrier of phone calls is so little. I'm not sure, but at least 90 to 95% of the world's population probably can make a phone call. So it's easy to call. So if you use a solution like this, and they don't understand you, and you get like the English says, ships in the night, you talk but you never meet, you will never use it anymore. Therefore, it needs to be almost as good as human-like. And when we have deviations, when we have customer care, and we don't do knowledge management, any deviation is usually lost. And any deviation is a potential new offering, or new service, or new learnings. Any deviation of Amelia will always be caught. So we will always learn on the job, even if the people is resisting to share what they know. They're hoarding knowledge. They can't get rid of that. So even though if you have people hoarding knowledge, Amelia will catch it, which means everyone gets better. And my favorite, make demand and supply meet. Finally, has never ever happened. That you can right-size your organization. You have a peak, it's summer. You have a peak, it's a weekend. You have low, it's Christmas, or whatever. How do you make sure that you have the right number of people on your staff to support the volume? For every time someone connects to digital labor, one instance is spawned up for that person. So if you have 100 calling, you have 100 Amelias. If you have 1,000, you have 1,000 Amelias. Yeah. Which means you will always have as much on your team as needed and as necessary. Not more, not less. You're working with one client and they do 110 million calls a year, and they have, the idea is to improve on their 46,000 people supporting those calls by using a machine instead. This has huge impact. Anyone who knows French? What does it mean?
L'étude n'est pas une condition agréable, mais la servitude est absurde. The doubt is not a favorable condition, but the certitude is absurd.
Exactly.
That is more or less a literal translation.
What I'm trying to say, it's very hard to say. What's going to future bring to us? And it's absurd to tell something with a certainty. That's what I mean. You know, it's 250 years ago. So what will happen if you go back to what you tell earlier on? You know, can machines do smarter things? What do we have in our labs? We just launched a new version 1st of June, which brings analytics in as well, to both have an analytical mind at the same time. Do unsequential processes. Have you ever heard of such a stupid thing, really? Where you can fast track your process automatically. if you figure out that steps have already been in place, don't do them. Like we do as humans. For example, if someone tells me, my name is Peter, of course we don't ask what their name is. We just skip that step. We know that. Have machines doing that is not that easy as well, because we usually have scripts or processes we need to follow all the questions. Now use semantic understanding to be able to learn all what they are said. We can even answer the wrong thing to wrong questions. If someone's going to ask you your first name, your last name, your address, and your frequent flyer ID, and you answer wrong to all of those questions, but you answer last name to first name, or first name to last name, and frequent flyer ID to your postal address, and postal address to frequent flyer ID, she will still get it, because she knows what you're doing. Unpredictable. Intent switching. Would you say that your clients are unpredictable? They might call about one thing and say, oh, well, I have you on the phone. Can you help me with this? How do you do that? Do you switch to the new thing and get back to it? How do you do things like, we talk about the topic, and next time we meet each other after the coffee, should we continue on the same topic or what shouldn't we? I can just look at you, I will see if I should do it or not. How can you know if a machine should still continue on the last session when you meet again? If the person was unhappy last time, should you still continue being unhappy? All those kind of aspects, how to train machines in affective computing to really understand close to empathy.
One other problem is that, of course, it's obvious people make mistakes. If you learn from people,
yes,
then you will also learn mistakes.
Of course. And that's why I wouldn't say that what Amelia does is, of course, 100% correct based on what you learned. And if that is just a lot of rubbish, of course it's rubbish. So it will not become any better than the people governing her. Because we don't want the risk of having her learn by herself and then jeopardizing your brand. So when I talk mostly like board of directors and executives at the large European companies. And they always tell me one thing, whatever we do, it has to be emotional. People need to connect with our brand with an emotion. It's all loyalty, it's all branding. You go to a company and say, okay, we're interested in your solution. How can we bump our values so we are higher in valued as a company? How can we use Amelia so when we sell our company, it has a higher value on the stock market? It's all about value and branding and customers, loyalty. And the consumer always wins. What are we doing? Yes, we're now looking at bringing cognitive together with robotics. Robotics is robotics today. I mean, like a robot who can climb stairs like that. It's not cognitive. They don't have a brain who can comprehend and understand. So now we're trying to see, we have a comprehension and understanding. We can do facial recognition, all those things, voice recognition, all that. How can we tie that into something which is an android to make real things? So today we can project Amelia into glass. It looks like a 1.8 meter tall woman. So how can we get into something? So when you go into a shop, you're met by something which is similar to human. You get one experience. People want to have it in a car. Loyalty, for example, let's assume you have Amelia in your car, and you drive. You get the lease car from work. After 3 years, you have learned all your habits. When you bring the kids to school, when you go to meetings, and then you get to, after 3 years, a new car. Would you either take a new BMW, which has got Amelia into it, who has learned all your different aspects of your life, or buy a new one and lose everything you learned in 3 years? So everything we do comes back to loyalty and branding, nothing else. Because if I take a plane by KLM or British Airways to London, it's just 2 airplanes. It's the experience of the brand which lets me take one of them. You agree?
So you would say that we need to install Amelias at the airport so they recognize our clients? Is that an example of how we could... Maybe.
But I'm trying to say that I think our life is going to be infused by digital labor everywhere. And I would just love to have something that can make, like, fix my travel and say, okay, I need to go to Stockholm. Okay. She knows what I like to fly. She knows I like an aisle seat. She tried to pick the right taxi for me. She booked a hotel room, do everything for me because she knows my habits. And she knows, okay, I did this once. It's just an event. I did it twice, and it was on a weekday. Potentially something you actually do every week. I did 3 times in a week on a weekday. Oh, this is a habit. So next time you go to that same place in the 4th day, maybe we should propose a new parking space for you. Because it's something you usually do. Learn about what we are doing as humans. Yes?
So in the near future, a lot of companies will start doing this. But everybody owns a small piece of the puzzle. So how will those different Emilias or connected to each other? Because then it's the only way you can actually have a door-to-door solution, right?
If I should take it a bit further then. So if you start to think about that a bit philosophical, if you skip AI just for a few seconds, talk about computing instead. Yes. Just to be sure that no one had something which was connected to your body. Because that is what we see today, that everything we do with computing is external to our bodies. We can have pacemakers and some clever robotics if we have some disability. But usually, everything is external. But now I think the next step is actually to move it inside our bodies. Let's think I could actually connect to someone else's brain. Or connect my iPhone to my brain. I think that's the next revolution. Today you can already drive a car by your brain using your brain waves. They already detected that if you look at right, that if you think left, the car drives left. If you think right, it drives right. Volvo has that already. So there's a lot of things happening. There are new standards called the V2V and V2I standards, which are standards which were ratified 2016, which says that all cars in Europe should be able to communicate with each other in traffic. It should be I think 2019, it should be a requirement for all cars. So when your car is driving, talk to all the cars around you and all the different traffic lights. So everything is happening. So I think what happened, when we get computers to get into our own, under our skin, I think some marvelous things can happen. I know, for example, SAS, they can already get an RFID in your hand, so when I go to the gate, you just show your hand, nothing else. It's a different aspect of how to do it. But connecting different brains, yes. So when we talk about computers today, if I have my program, you have your program. I can use the RESTful API or a SOAP-based API. But what about have linguistic APIs? I actually tell you what I need. Can you send me your invoice? Yes, here it is. So when you teach Amelia, you use natural language. Can you please ask the user a question what their name is? And Amelia generates a question, which is the correct one in the language needed. So we don't program her. It's all about teaching. So we are actually experimenting this with actually putting several Amelias together. But yes, sorry.
Yeah, just to follow up on his question. So we have Siri, we have Google, and those are Amelias as well.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask my Google to talk to KLM, and then my Google is going to talk to your Amelia, and then they're going to get into a discussion, right?
Yes, that already happens today. So let's get into that point because it is interesting. So I have Apple. I use Siri a lot. I love it. I have Amazon Echo as well. I love it as well. So what they are, let me put this correct here now. So they are all task-based solutions. So if you go back a while, and IVR systems, press 1 for that, press 2 for that, press 4 for that. We all know them and hate them. So, and based on that concept, you might have, okay, I can press 1 to 9, so I have 9 different options. So what many companies have done, they have taken the same approach and put a natural language understanding NLU engine in front of it. So you can actually say something, it maps it to one of those 9 compartments, and it does the task. That is Amazon Echo, but it maybe have 4,000 boxes you can map it to.
But would you say Google is the same? Because I would not agree.
No, I didn't say that. I said Amazon Echo, yeah. So what that means, it's almost like putting lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. You know what I mean? It looks smarter. So what we, for example, have done, so we have taken Amazon Echo, which is, they've sold, I think, almost 30 million devices. 30 million. So we take Amazon Echo, you speak to that one, but it's Amelia in the back end. So which means that you will get a question back. It's like, can you help me with my printer? Yes. Do you have a PC? Yes, okay. Is it connected to network? I'm just playing here. So in that case, and that means a multi-dialogue conversation, that something can actually shoot information back to you to ask for more context to qualify your intent. None of the other systems except Google is doing that. Siri is hopeless, but it's very good if you can tell it, can you tell me what the time is in San Diego? You get the time, and Echo as well. But can you tell me the time and let me pick one of a few towns in California? You just get confused because you can't go back and ask another question. It's not context-oriented. So therefore, we think everything we have to do with human-like experience has to be to really understand what they're doing. And then at the same time understand sentiment and be able to execute something, do something, not respond back, actually do things for you. And that's the difference. And chatbots are almost all of them frameworks you can program and you set loose, while digital labor is something that does work for you in symbionts with humans. It's a different approach altogether. I'm not saying it's better or worse. They have different purposes. Sometimes maybe it's sufficient with just a chatbot.
But except for Google, you said, or not?
No, there are a couple other ones. So Google is more into the deep learning aspect. So we use some of Google's components in our product as well. When it comes about natural language parsing, creating decisions tree out of determine whether a word is a noun or whether a word is a verb or all of those aspects. We use Google's aspect for that one. But then the representation of knowledge is completely proprietary. And that's where we excel. So some advice. Maybe you should never give advice, but a few statements. I think it's time for any company now to have a look at digital labor in operation strategy. It's time to think of it. It's time to do something. Start to evaluate. It's time to test. What will it mean for us? Because it's not until you do that you come up with this new smart ideas of how we can actually apply it. You need to see it and touch it yourself. A different ecosystem. You were onto it. You know, what will happen? Will we connect different brains all together? How do you integrate a solution like this in your IT landscape? So for example, I made an Amelia who can book plane tickets already. It was pretty easy. It took me 4 hours. Google had some APIs. You just talk to the APIs and then let Amelia be trained. And the good thing if you're doing this, you don't need to put the data into Amelia. You need to train how to do it, like humans. We don't need to know the whole catalog of all phone numbers. We can look them up. New threats and opportunities. I think there are going to be many companies who are going to try to use it to leapfrog others. I met a guy last week whose name is Kees Kolen. You know him? A Dutch guy who started Booking.com, who started Uber, who started, yeah. And he said, when we showed him this, that if I still would have been the CEO of Booking.com and my IT people haven't implemented this, I would have fired the whole team. This is how impact it is. And it was so fun when he said that he's the head of Tesla in Europe, and he said that it's not going to sustain. Because he said that because Elon is not interested in cars anymore. He wants to go into space. A different perspective. But he also said that will Booking.com coexist in 10 years? Who knows? It only takes a few dedicated people to turn it all around. So, and with the consumer market deciding everything, to create an application, get millions of users, that doesn't take that much anymore. So maybe air companies or airlines will be something different in the future. Who knows? It's going to still be interesting. But we see a lot of clients who are like third and fourth in their business who want to use this and get on top of the other ones by executing fast. And this one, the risk of non-adoption versus early adoption. research says that, let's assume that you want to have the whole Dutch people use digital solutions or digital labor when they communicate with any kind of public entity or commercial business. How many people do we need to convince? What do you think?
10% maybe.
Any other number? So research says that any solution being provided by any human always gets 6 to 7% people says yes, wherever it is. And to get the whole team moving, you need to get between 16 and 17%. It's only 10% you need to be convinced to get the ball moving. So actually get these things in place take a lot less time than it usually takes. So I think that our CEO and founder says that in 10 years you're going to meet someone working in the office and you're going to make sure if it's a machine or a human. 10 years. I think it's going to be less. But so I think at this point in time, it's time to start evaluating, figuring out what are the solutions available. Big data, analytics, machine learning, deep neural networks, all of it out there. What is it? How do we use it? Does it make any sense to us? To what extent and with what business? What are the risks associated? What are the benefits? Many clients do business value assessment. They go into the business, okay, how can we infuse our business by digital labor? And what would the benefits be and the risks? And the clock is running, and time lost is just that. So making a no decision is also a decision. So I'm not sure how I am with time, but I think I like to emphasize this one here. Meaningful results. What we need to do with technology like this is to change the way we do things, but it has to be meaningful. The first year we introduced Generation 1, everyone at the Gartner conference when we did a poll said they will only do this because of the cutting costs. I think to 70%, something like that. Last year was almost none who used cost as a driver. It was all loyalty, branding, and customer experience. And I think that's actually very valuable. Yes?
Do you all have your own Amelia? So ECS has a different one because they probably have different policies and stuff like that.
Yeah, so in terms of, if you take the Amelia as a concept, so when you get an instance of Amelia, that could be virtualized. So you can say, okay, hi, I'm Amelia. I'd like to split Amelia into top 5 corporate clients and the rest. And then you will say that these are the services for top 5 and these are the services for the rest. Which means that it's like having 2 different humans which doesn't talk to each other, like completely separated. That's one thing. Next level would be, let's assume that KLM uses Amelia and it's the first airline. Let's assume that. And then 2 weeks later we sign British Airways. Would that mean that British Airways will benefit from KLM's learning? No. So indifferent towards anyone else and Google especially, the data acquired and knowledge is yours, not ours. And it's your intellectual property. Maybe we might like to say that, okay, what can I think of? Maybe the IATA airport codes, can we reuse them for both British Airways and KLM? Because they probably not no competitive advantage because everyone needs them. I can't distinguish KLM from British Airways by using this. It doesn't make any sense. So we will
align them with all the airlines, for instance, that this is common knowledge.
Yeah, so now you're getting into a bit of the future as well. So if I would like to dream what I like to put forward to our clients is a concept of labor in the cloud. To say that what we give you today, so if you would sign on Amelia today, we will tell you, here she is. And you will say, hello, I don't know anything about airlines. Nothing whatsoever. I know what the plane is, I know what the car is, I know the concept of transportation. I know that if I left there and arrived there, I have moved. You know, those kind of concepts. And I also know that if I bought the ticket and I have it, KLM doesn't have it anymore because they transfer possession of those aspects. So you need to learn her yourself. What I would like to offer you instead is to offer you a profession to say, okay, this is a customer care representative for European airline business, which has all the basics, understanding about what the C-class ticket is, an understanding of APEX or PEX tickets, or whatever they're called. You know, I said I was ignorant, you know? All these kind of different aspects of traveling, and to be able to sell that to all airliners, a profession. So Amelia has a proficiency. It's not like he starts by knowing the basic processes, but then you need to see, okay, the concept of finding whether your tickets is changeable or not. Maybe it's different with British Airways than it is for KLM, or maybe British Airways are connected to Amadeus and you're connected to some systems in the US, whatever. So I would like to have like a basic understanding, but no client yet has allowed us to do that. They are very, very protective. It's even hard to get the reference because they think this is so critical to their businesses.
And Amadeus?
Or
whatever. They're in the middle.
Yes. So when we talk about integration, so we can integrate with any kind of system that has a publicly available API which is documented. So it's pretty straightforward, but neither Amadeus or another one is actually using Amelia today in their operations. So today, the largest client base for Amelia is insurance companies.
Can we see Amelia? Is it possible? Do we have her?
Do you want to?
I want to meet her.
Sure, sure, I can. If it's easy to get on a wireless network, I can give it a try. Ah, okay.
That's big enough.
Okay.
Mind the capitals, these are zeros.
It's actually, I think, better if you type it in yourself, so it gets right.
Maybe in the meantime, I don't know.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah.
Can I type it in?
Yeah, so you see what the... So, yeah.
We are also experimenting, or will be experimenting soon with the virtual assistant in the HR department. So we're looking for a similar kind of solution to provide the shared service center with such artificial intelligence to support us as employees if we have questions around the HR parameter. At in-flight services, maybe Sam, you can elaborate a little bit on what we are looking for at in-flight.
No one's doing like that.
Artificial intelligence.
Well, right now we have a different internet platform for cabin crew.
Yeah.
Looking for a different solution.
Is it?
To make it more future-proof instead of like
I think it's this.
Platform with plain text. We were looking for a personal assistant or a Siri-like tool to have all your questions about common labor agreements or about your planning, etc., in a smart and intuitive way.
Yeah. So we are going to try to create some
No, it's actually
concepts.
showing even though it's disconnected.
Identified in marketing as well, to have a look if we could do something similar for the IT service desk. There's also a lot of agents. This could help us out also in the, for example, if we have a lot of, we have a major incident, a lot of people are going to call, and we have long waiting time, we could support each other with such technology.
So, this was unprepared. I like that. So, and you said HR. So if I show you an HR example.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, this is a system I have in New Jersey, and I logged on, and you can authenticate in many different fashions through LDAP and through PKI and certificates and SAML2, whatever. So it brought up and saw that, okay, I have the rights as an administrator to connect to 2 Amelia instances in one brain. Johan, which is my own little Amelia brain, my sweetie on the side, as my wife says, and Sweden, which is a common virtual environment for the people who work in Sweden. So I'm going to pick Sweden. Yes. So what happened here is that this is no, you can have it in Dutch and in Spanish and French and so on. You need to decide which language. You can't detect which language you're speaking at the moment. You need to select that when you do the installation. So we have an Amelia with language packs on. So in this case, this is the default interface. And for you who are IT guys, we have API, RESTful APIs, SDK kits for mobile phones. So you can more or less have her brand to have the representation of her feeling, of the feeling of it look like anything you like. If you're a skilled JavaScript programmer, you can do anything you like. And we also have a button here with a voice, which meant that Amelia detected that this is a voice capable platform, so you can actually speak to her. So let's see here. Hello.
Hey there.
I work for IPsoft.
All clear, Johan Toll.
Today I am in Amsterdam and will leave for London tonight and need an ID card issued.
What is your employee number?
So in this case here, I didn't say, can you please help me provide me an ID card? I need an ID card. You can more or less write in any kind of fashion. She will really understand what you're meaning. And this question here is generated by herself. It's not programmed. It's what we call natural language generation. So Emil has been taught that to be able to continue on in this process, she needs to provide and figure out what the employment number is. And if I tell her that I'm going to be in Amsterdam and my employment number is 226, she will of course never ask because I just told her. And this is the concept of intent and context detection. And I say it is 2267.
Thanks. To help you, I first need to verify your identity. I've sent you a password to your email address on file. What is the password?
So in this case, you hear Amelia speaking, and for that one, Amelia doesn't have any voice-to-text or text-to-voice capabilities at all, because we think there are other companies on the market which are much better than that, because we focus on comprehension of the written language. So in this case, we're using Nuance. You can use NeoSpeech, you can use Google Voice, as long as you support the web audio standard, which makes sure that you can use the dialect and the best which is available for the Dutch market or whatever market you're in. Yeah.
Will Amelia remember the personnel number you gave, your ID number?
Yes and no. So what we have done is, to answer your question, yes, she remembers it in the current session only.
Not based on IP address or whatever?
No. So I'm authenticated. So I told her of course, I could have picked the number from a CRM system, but in this case, I wanted Amelia to know what my number is so she can actually challenge me with a one-time password to really figure out if I am who I told her that I am. The session with the employment number is then stored until an archive time ends. So you can say, okay, we want to store all conversation with all clients for 10 days or 3 years. You can decide that. And then you can also declare, when you declare a dialogue dead or in idle. When the client is not talking to you, what should you do then? Should you bring in some news or do another process? Or if you considered it being dead, what should you do, etc. So you can control all that. We also have what we call a lexical capability. So for example, if you tell Amelia, I like KLM, she will remember that forever. So you can write lexical, grammatical expressions which tells Amelia linguistically what you should keep and store for future use. And today we store birthday, anniversaries, spouse, kids, favorite movie. I think there are roughly 200-300 of those aspects. And what I added here is that we also have the aspect of an information view. Sometimes, if you have a conversation, you would like to have a view who shows exactly what you have been talking about. Let's assume that this is a plane ticket. So you will see the complete information about from, where, to, do you agree, book ticket. So you can have difference between the conversation and information. So if I bring up my mail application somewhere, I should have been, here I got the password, 926810. 926810. So in this case here, Amelia run the process and make the RESTful API call, which generated the password.
Thank you. The correct password has been received. The information to the right is the information found. Would you like to have the identity card issued?
So in this case, you can also control Amelia, whether you want to guide the user. Instead of asking them to write something, you can guide them. So clicking that button is the same thing as saying yes, or sure, or absolutely, or affirmative. It means the same thing. In this case, Amelia made another call to PeopleSoft, Oracle PeopleSoft, and fetched the employment record for me and display that. So I can see, yes, it's me, it's the correct boss, so it's fine. So I ask Amelia to yes, which meant the same thing as answering yes to the question. And now Amelia is generating an identity card.
Identity card to your email address. Please retrieve the digital identity card in your mailbox on your iPhone to add it to your Apple Wallet. If you're running an Apple Macintosh, it can also be added to your iPhone using Apple's cloud services. A ticket with number 117,554 has been created for future reference. Goodbye.
Yeah, and this is a ticket created by Amelia as well. So in this case here, and this is the generated identity card for me. So this took me roughly 4 hours to do, to get this in place, which meant this is a service which we actually don't offer. So I then had Amelia to create a service to any employee which they can talk to. I didn't put any employment data into Amelia. It all stays within PeopleSoft and doesn't require any resources from HR, and it's all compliant every time it executes. It's all that validates that the person requiring the identity card is actually the correct person. So this is just one way of showing you how you can make the solution efficient. But I can also bring up another interface of Amelia while I have you here. Yes?
So how did you interface with PeopleSoft?
I just made a RESTful API call using their public APIs.
She learns the APIs by
No.
using them, or
No, of course I have to tell her. Yeah.
How to use them?
Yes. And I can also use Amelia in a different fashion. And
why did you make her female?
yes. You have to ask our founder, really. He's actually a model of the real human. And so this is the avatar version of Amelia. And we use a concept called behavior markup language. So every second we generate commands to her, how she should express, how fast she should raise her eyebrow, how fast she should stay up, how slow she should down, how much she should wave her hands. And after a while, she's going to start looking like this and be absolutely bored because she doesn't have anything to do, like a human would do. So it's not the movie, it's not recorded. It's actually how she understands herself. And so if I say, I hate you, and you will see.
Sorry to hear that.
You see her expression changed, she lowered her eyebrows and the lips went down. So we model roughly, I think it's 60 different muscles in our face based on how we understand that. And how do we do that? So if I get in onto the skin of Amelia.
Hello.
No. Because then that's the way she's been taught, that if someone tells her, like, I want to be apologetic. So for example, one of the banks, they wanted Amelia to be extra polite when they talked about competitors. You have to make sure that she didn't become nasty. And then wanted her, say, oh, how nice. And then wanted to bring them over to their own bank. But do it in a polite way. So for example, what we have, so here we have the user and Amelia, and we have emotions, mood, and personality. And you can see that she's all pleasured. Starting point, she's happy. And if I say the same thing here and say, you are doing really poor work. And I say emotion went.
I am sorry to hear that.
And you see, it went completely the opposite of the pleasure line. But the mood is still pleasured, because that was just a sudden sentiment of displeasure. So what we can do with that, if the mood gets down below 0.5 in a number of times, we can say, okay, now we bring in a human. Because now it requires more personal skills than a machine has currently to deal with it. And in this case, I think she's even trained to do that. And I say, I hate you. Very nice demo here. Just to prove the aspect of it.
I'm sorry, I do not understand. Shall I contact another agent?
So if I say yes now, she brings in a human. And then she starts listening to how she should work to treat people which are unhappy. It's all happening with learning all the time. So that is one aspect. So if I want to show you what really happened behind the scenes when I ran the process before. So if we restart this and we say,
Hi, Johan Toll.
we need an identity card raised.
What is your employee number?
Yeah. 2267, that's what I know.
Thanks. To help you, I first need to verify your identity. I've sent you a password to your email address on file. What is the password?
This is showing you how you model it. Anyone who recognizes this? It's a standard BNP 2.0 framework, which is standard for document processing. So what we have done is we have extended the framework with natural language instructions. You can say yes, sure, escalate, ask. And when you have a question like this that tells Amelia, you should put the question exactly like it is. If you move the question mark, it says generate the question yourself based on your own understanding of the user. So you can say ask the user for its password. What is your password? Or what Johan is your password? So we generate the question herself. And then here we have the call, the RESTlet, and we have some logic, and here's other variables. And when I said, and here's the information captured in her brain, Johan Toll need identity card raised. This is how she captures what it is. When I said I, she understands okay, that has to be me. I'm requiring it, it's Johan requiring it. That is the way we do it. And then we are able to kick off process ontologism and also episodic memories. And episodic memories are, I should explain this. Semantical memory are memories which requires us to think and send synapses, a lot of them. So if I say, okay, do you know the capital of Mozambique? I don't. But maybe I need to start thinking of it. Maybe Google to get to figure out what it is. But if someone asks me, okay, how do you take the elevator here to the 4th floor? I took an elevator to 10th floor today, and the day before I took an elevator to 9th floor. So I don't need to think how to operate an elevator, look all the same. So it means that that is something which is cached in our frontal lobe and not in the back of our brain. So with episodic memories, we can take all conversations recorded and load them into her brain at the time it's happening, and then switch between them. So for example, if someone asks you, what is the status of your invoice? Then we load all previous experiences of invoices into Amelia's brain, and she has all them in her brain. Could be thousands. And then someone says, I don't know the invoice date. And Amelia checks, I talked to one client who didn't know what the invoice date is, and said, you can find it on the top right corner of your invoice. Now Amelia would say that, but still the same intent. It switched context. So there are many abilities on how we can use Amelia.
Johan?
Yes.
Maybe you should also ask Amelia how long it takes if you want to make your 6 o'clock flight today.
Okay. No clue. She will not, of course, learn.
She will tell you to leave within 10 minutes or so.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Thanks for that one.
I think we have a few more questions.
Yes.
So we have some time left, but
not much.
Not 30 minutes.
No.
Here's a question. Regarding languages, you mentioned that there are several languages.
Yes.
Does you need to train Amelia in every language, or how does that work?
Yes.
Yes.
And no.
And no.
Yeah. I could have said but also. But what I mean is for example, a process, in Dutch, Swedish, English, etc., is of course the same process. But the way you of course need to change the questions. So see, if you have Amelia for the Dutch market and for the German market, as an example, you would have one Amelia with 2 virtual instances, one with German and one with Dutch.
Okay. And it's mainly about Dutch, French, and English?
We have, let's see here, English, Japanese, Dutch, French, Spanish, Swedish, Norwegian, Italian and Portuguese is under development at the moment, and also Danish.
There are various dialects and accents in each language. That would Amelia be trained on all?
Yeah, you might think so, but that's not the case actually, because we use the same English for all English-speaking countries. So India is the same English as they use in the US. So it's of course an issue if you use voice to text. Then you can load Indian English or American or South African or etc. Then you have different flavors of it, like you have for German, like Swiss German, Austrian German, German, etc.
Can Amelia pick up sarcasm?
Sarcasm? No, not really. This is funny actually. When we started to play with Amelia a few years back, we wanted to see, okay, what can she answer? So, so we loaded Amelia with, I think, 200 public movie scripts as the truth. And you asked her about life, and everything was either told with a lot of sex and a lot of violence. Yeah. So you shouldn't always trust her in that perspective. Good.
Last question.
How vulnerable is Amelia to cybercrime compared to other IT systems? Because she tends to interact back and maybe.
Yes. Yes.
It changes the situation.
Information security, of course, because we do in insurance, we do banking, so she's encrypted like crazy. So the people who actually support don't like her because everything is encrypted, configuration files, databases, everything. And done a lot of pet tests and so on to make sure it is really working the way it should, that we don't leak information. And in the first version was not specifically nice, I will tell you, but it's all been fixed now. But of course, we probably have issues as anyone else has. Yeah. PCI compliance, yeah. It's a tough one.
Okay. Johan, I think it was great. Also, the audience was great. Good questions. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope next time you fly KLM. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's,
Oh, wow.
jij bedankt.
Ja, dankjewel.
Alsjeblieft.
Ja, top. Ja, ik vlieg altijd wel KLM.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dankjewel.